Books that got me back into reading. So right now I'm in a bit of a reading slump, I'll be honest. It might be the weather, it might be many other things. But I'm going to give you 3 books that in the past have gotten me back into reading. Starting off strong with William Dalrymple's The Last Mughal. I like this, and you don't necessarily need to read The Last Mughal as your first one, but I think William Dalrymple as a whole is a really great writer and engaging writer. William Dalrymple's books are sizable, they're not small books, but you can tell from his writing, one, he knows what he's talking about, which surprisingly, a lot of people who write non-fiction don't really know what they're talking about, super in depth, but you can tell he knows what he's talking about. You can tell he really loves the subject matter, you can tell he lives and breathes South Asian, Indian history. And also he's based as hell. I don't have Twitter anymore, but his tweets are based as hell. The Last Mughal in particular, I think, really just like flicked a switch for me. I think when I read it, I was like, I'm not feeling reading non-fiction at all. And it's the way he writes. I don't know if this is your family dynamic, but there's always that one person in a family who can just kind of talk and tell you things. Like, I don't know, you get a group of everyone together and it's just one person just saying stuff and it's really engaging and you're learning. Not to toot my own horn, that's kind of me in my family, just because I know things like random, I don't know, I like learning and knowing things. I'm sure I don't have as depth of knowledge as someone like William Dalrymple, but the things I'm really knowledgeable about, and Mr. Big Head over here, the things I know, and I like telling people about them, especially if someone asks, and it's kind of what it feels like with William Dalrymple. It's like he's telling you, so it's this very old human form of telling, communications. You gather around and there's someone telling a story or telling information, everyone's learning. That's kind of the feeling you get when you read a William Dalrymple book. Yes, there's a lot of information in there. Yes, sometimes you have to go off and be like, what did I just read? There were so many things. Who was this person? Who was that person? But that's just purely the subject matter. But if you have even an inkling of interest in South Asian history in particular, William Dalrymple is such a great read, and he is like top 5 white guys in my opinion. Up next is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winters. You know what? This book, I think, kicked off the fantasy run I went on this year. If you're a long-time viewer, I went on a run from like this time last year until the summer of 2025, where I was just consuming a ton of fantasy books. Evan Winters' writing, in my opinion, actually the biggest thing about The Rage of Dragons is that it's so different. Typically, and this is changing, it's definitely changing, but typically the most mainstream fantasy books you're going to read are basically set in a medieval Europe type setting, simply because, the fantasy books that your favourite fantasy author reads, they were all set like that. Tolkien, Earthsea mentioned. Also, Earthsea should be on this list, but I talk about Earthsea all the time. But Earthsea, also a book you should read. But Evan Winters' book is different. It's African history inspired. It is so different. The mythology is different to the mythology you would normally get from your typical fantasy book. It hits on topics that are really interesting from a different perspective. It's talking about colonialism, class dynamics. Obviously, it's set in a monarchical society, so when it comes to class, there is that, the ruling class is very different to kind of the ruling class we would see now, at least here in like the UK at the very least. The monarchy, yes, ruling class, but typically ruling class we talk about capitalists and wealthy elites. This is all about like challenging monarchy, challenging hierarchy. It's about, I guess there is some stuff, yeah, actually no, it does address like masculinity, what is masculinity, questioning masculinity, or at least how society sees it. It's a very deep book, and I think it was Evan Winter's first book. I believe it was self-published, they got picked up by traditional publishing. I know it's a series, I've not gotten around to the latter books in the series, but Rage of Dragons is really a great place to kick off getting back into fantasy, especially if you want something different. I think maybe for me, because I just kept reading European-inspired fantasy, it was getting very samey. There wasn't anything different there. And then I read this and I was like, oh, yeah, there is different cultures, different ideas that you can really mine for, even in a fantasy setting. And so that's why I really enjoy this, and why I think it's the reason I kickstarted that run of continuously reading fantasy books, which maybe I'll get back into in the new year. I'll be honest, this was a last minute change. It was going to be a different book, but I'm going to say White Nights by Dostoevsky. Now, hear me out. I don't know why. I read this book knowing nothing about it. It was at a counter at a Waterstones. I was buying my friend a book, and I saw this, and it was like £2. Like, oh, cool, I'll pick it up. I believe I left it in the Caribbean. In you know hotels sometimes have bookshelves. You can put a book and take a book. I left it there for someone to read. But I picked it up not knowing anything about it. But suddenly, and maybe it was me, maybe I manifested this. Maybe Dostoevsky should. I don't actually know his personal life enough to know if he'll descend from the heavens or rise up from below. So I don't know. One of the two. But Dostoevsky should thank me. Maybe I manifested everyone talking about White Knight. I don't know why. Maybe I just picked it up right when the hype for it had started to build and it kept going. But White Knights is a very short story by Dostoevsky, which is all about a walk that two people take, and they kind of fall in love through that walk, and it's really beautiful. And I saw a bunch of people talking about it around the time I read it, and even now I think it's still kind of in the zeitgeist. There's still people talking about it. I saw clips from what I believe must have been like a Russian film of it, or maybe a Soviet era film of it, but I didn't actually watch the whole thing. I doubt it would be a feature. It'd be probably a short film. But it's really having its moment. People are like, this is such a beautiful romance. I don't believe part of the thing people are thinking is so beautiful about it. Actually, no, I won't ruin it. I don't want to ruin that. Actually, that will spoil the book. But yeah, the reason I'm saying this is because I think I read White Knights, and then I was like, I can read classics now. It's short, but it's still not the easiest of reads. But I think classical literature, and classical literature I mean as in, like 18th, 19th century literature, 18th, 19th, 20th, that area, not the Iliad. That's a different type of classics. I mean, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, I'm going to say Jane Eyre, but it's not Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre's the name of the book. The Austens, the Brontes, all of that stuff. It's daunting. I'm daunted by them, but I read White Knight and I was like, oh wait, I can read these because it's short, and I think maybe the length of the books puts you off as well. But I read it and I was like, now I can go off and read more. And I'm not 100% sure of the timeline, but I know I did read Crime and Punishment before this, but that was a real slog. But after reading White Knights, I was like, oh, I have the confidence to go off and read classical literature. I recently got Anna Karenina, and I also recently got The Count of Monte Cristo, and I feel some amount of confidence going into this books because I read White Nights. So, you know, if you want to get into reading classical literature, I think you should read White Nights. And you can get like this really beautiful, the Penguin Black Book copy for like £2 from somewhere. So I highly recommend it. So those are 3 books that got me back into reading. Realised they were all guys. So again, Ursula K. Le Guin, Earthsea, fantastic collection of books. I have a whole playlist of videos I made about Earthsea, so I'll put that there and also link it down below for you to watch, because everyone should go off and read Earthsea. Let me know in the comments down below some books that you've kind of got you back into reading whenever you had a slump. Right now I'm in a bit of a slump and I'm trying to force myself through the books I said I would read in November and maybe reassess for December and see what I do in the new year. But let me know down below what books get you out of a reading slump. If it's one, you know, you've never read before and then you read it and it got you motivated to read again, or one that you go back to whenever you're struggling to get the fire in your belly to read more. But that being said, I want to say a special thank you to my members. My lovely members get access to bonus videos. They'll be part of a book club. There's a movie club. They also get access to videos early. They get to help shape the channel, and you know, if they have any ideas or videos that they specifically want to see, they get to tell me that, and I can make a video that is tailored to their wants and needs. So you can become a member from as little as £1 a month. You can click down below on this video or on my channel, click the join button if you want to become a member. But if not, thank you for reaching this part of the video. I highly appreciate it. Yes, very much so. Why did I get a Boris Johnson there? I don't know. It's at 1 AM. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe and share the video with a friend or family member. Hey, I hope you read a great